thank you all for coming. I'm Barb Sundag. I'm the town manager here in Brattleboro. And the schedule of how we're going to do this is I'm going to ask Fire Chief Michael Bukasi to come and talk a little bit. He's going to talk first about how the call came in, how they addressed and attacked the fire, and then as well as then the cause and the nature of the fire. I will then have our Public Works Director, Steve Barrett, will talk a bit. Our Police Chief, Gene Wren, is not available. He's doing some interview process right now, so he's not available. So we'll also talk a little bit about security and how we've cordoned off the area and how we're providing security to the building. And then we're going to have Carol Allott is going to talk a bit about we continue to have a shelter in place for folks who do not have a place to go. I'm then going to talk just a little bit about what we've been doing since the fire with regard to assistance for those residents that were affected and also businesses that were affected. Whether you are a resident, whether you are a business, your life has been thrown upside down. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing. And we've been, the property owner, how we've been working with Jonathan Chase, the property owner, and and his commitment to this process as well, and the work he's been doing. With that, you will find that I'll then have the board, the chair of the select board, say some words if you would like, and then we're going to take some questions. If you can hold your questions until we get to the end, it would be greatly appreciated. You may need to write them down so you remember, but with that, I'm going to ask Chief Bukasi to come and to say just a few words with regard to the fire. It's actually going to be more than a few.
Thank you. Basically, what I want to do is just lay out a timeline for everybody and the actions taken by the firefighters. At 8:46 p.m. on Sunday evening, we received the building alarm from the Brooks house, followed right behind it by a phone call from one of the residents reporting smoke on the third floor. Due to the report of smoke in the building, the first alarm assignment responded. That consists of 2 engines in the ladder truck and the 5 people that were on duty that evening. There's 6 people, I'm sorry. Upon arrival of the first truck at the building, they reported nothing showing from the outside. In other words, no smoke, no fire was showing on the outside of the building. The officer and the crew entered the building, and when they reached the 3rd floor, they encountered a smoke condition in the hallway and were advised of a fire in the building. They found their way to an apartment on the 3rd floor, and upon entering that apartment, they found it to be involved in fire. At that time, the officer reported a working fire, and he requested a second alarm. The second alarm brings in all off-duty firefighters, our call staff, and all Brattleboro equipment to the scene. The sprinkler system, the building is sprinkled. The sprinkler system was containing the fire in that room. Okay, that's very important, I think, to know at this point. They were stretching a line from the truck to the 3rd floor through the interior stairway. And at 9:01, the officer realized that his 6 or 7 guys were not going to be able to control that fire by themselves, and with the incoming Brattleboro people, and he struck a 3rd alarm. The 3rd alarm brings in 3 mutual aid engines and another ladder company from mutual aid towns, from surrounding towns. And just to show you how quick this progressed, so the 3rd alarm was struck at 9:01. At 9:03, I struck a 4th alarm, which again brings in 3 more engine companies and a ladder company, all from mutual aid towns. During this time, all of the incoming people, crews were assigned to what we call an interior attack. Hose lines were stretched into the building, and at the same time, teams were being assigned to search and rescue of all of the apartments on all of the floors. So we had crews working on the second floor, the third floor, the fourth floor, and the fifth floor. They were banging on doors, trying to evacuate residents. Residents were exiting the building at the time the first truck got here. During the search and rescue operations, we did find residents still in the building, in their apartments, unaware of what was going on, even though the fire alarm was going off. For some reason, they chose not to leave the building. They were escorted out of the building by firefighters. So keep in mind now, by 10:30, at 10:27, we struck a fifth alarm. This is our highest alarm assignment that we have, bringing in another 3 engine companies and another ladder company from out of town. And all of these people we continue to assign to operations inside the building. At 10:35, while we were doing what we call a par check, in other words, it's a status report of all of the companies that were working in the building, we lost radio communications with a crew that was on the 4th floor. After several attempts to reach this crew and getting no answer from them, we did what we call an emergency back out. We ordered all personnel to leave the building, drop whatever you're doing, leave the building. There's an emergency with a firefighter. Also at 10:35, what's called a rapid intervention team, or a RIT team. They are a team of specially trained firefighters that their sole assignment is to stand next to the command post, and they are to rescue firefighters. That's their sole responsibility at this fire. That team was activated to enter the building and look for this lost crew that was on the 4th floor. We did shortly thereafter regain communications with that company. Some exited over the Brattleboro aerial ladder that was set up in the front of the building. Others exited from the interior stairway. Everybody got out safely. We did a complete accountability of all firefighters on the scene to make sure we accounted for everybody. And at that point, we regrouped and we went to what we call an exterior attack. Heavy streams were applied to the fire from the outside using the ladder pipes and street guns. Basically what we were trying to do at this time is to put large amounts of water on the fire to try to knock it down. At one point during the fire, we had 9 aerial ladders all working at the same time, which is unheard of in Brattleboro. Some of the concerns that the command staff took into account, first and foremost, of the safety of all the firefighters and the emergency personnel on the scene. We had anywhere from 125 to 150 people working on the fire ground. We had to account for their safety. That was our utmost concern. Secondly, is we were very concerned, as you all know, the construction, the downtown New England type of building. Our goal was to contain the fire to that building. There was a severe concern that this fire was going to spread to the south, to the next building, and we were just setting up to make sure that we cut that fire off from spreading any farther to the south. The fire was declared under control at 6:36 on Monday morning. We used a total of approximately 23 mutual aid towns that came into Brattleboro, along with all of the local resources to include Department of Public Works, Brattleboro Police Department, Rescue Inc., the Red Cross, and multiple businesses that brought food and refreshments in for the firefighters. I can't say enough about that. The cause, Vermont State Police, the Brattleboro Fire Department investigation team, the Department of Fire Safety from the state of Vermont, and the Brattleboro Police Department all worked together, and the cause was determined to be Above a third-floor ceiling, there was some wire that had been run through a void. There was a space between a ceiling and a floor. Some electrical lines were run through that void. At some point in the past, a staple had penetrated that wire. The wire has arced, and that is what they have determined the cause to be. They're estimating that fire could have smoldered from anywhere from 24 to 48 hours before. In that void, the fire traveled in the void, went up a wall, and then made its way into the cop loft or another void space underneath the roof, and it spread laterally both ways. And to this time right now, the fire department has not left the scene. We continue to check for hot spots. We found a couple of smoldering fires on the upper floors. And now we're just helping to make the downtown safe at this point, along with Public Works and the police department, and to try to help and answer questions for anybody that has them. And I think lastly, I'd like to say I can't say enough about the efforts of the Brattleboro Fire Department and all of the mutual aid companies that came in here to help us. And with that,
Just a couple of things from a person who's not a firefighter and who was able to watch the professionalism of those 1 to 200 firefighters. When at 23 different units were in here at any one time, Chief Picasso was the person in charge of all those people and telling them where to go and what to do. Professionalism of those departments then showed in that they were able to go to their areas and do the work that they needed to do. This was a fire that became very unpredictable, and again, according to the state trooper who was the fire investigator yesterday, took him quite a while to figure out the cause of the fire and how it spread. Partly that had to do with the fact that, if you can imagine, there was one little kink in a wire that caused the fire. There was nothing wrong with the way that wire was done. You could probably all go to our homes and find a place where electrical wires had been, stapled in, and that's just the particular. At one point, that's the way it was done. Because that was on the third floor, the apartment above it, the fourth floor was vacant. Nobody noticed that the floor was getting warm up there. Had that been noticed, they probably would have figured out something much earlier. The fire, as the chief said, smoldered for 24 to 48 hours, according to the investigator, before it actually got into flames. Had that fire occurred later in the night or in the middle of the night, he feels very confident that we would have had deaths and would have lost the building because it would have happened so quickly. The fire moved so rapidly throughout the building once that got caught. That was one of the frustrations. The fire department spent 9 hours with 9 aerial ladders fighting a fire because it was so unpredictable and how it was moving from room to room. The fire inspector, and this is again from his report yesterday, which was verbal report, we don't have the written report, says that commended the chief and the fire department. That building would have been, he would have said that very few places, very few cities, towns in Vermont would have been able to not only salvage but actually keep this building in the condition it is in, contain that fire. And we were able to do that for a couple different reasons. One is we're one of the few fire departments that goes in with an interior attack, meaning that our folks went in there, they were in that building first before they had the exterior of the building of the fire down. We were in there, they were in there fighting that fire. And before they even actually, and getting a good sense of the fire, and that's what helped us save the building and save all, the property and also not lose any lives. He was I can't say enough of how proud I am of our fire department and of all the other fire departments in our area, because true professionalism, and I just want people to know that I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a fire chief and to lose contact with a whole group of firefighters and not know where they're at. And at the same time, one of the things the fire chief didn't explain is we knew there were 59 apartments. We weren't able to account for all those people at any one time. So all the while they're fighting that fire, they're looking for people. And that was their primary duty at that time. And so I think we can all be very, very proud of our fire department. In addition to that, the fire department, we think of them when we think about fighting fires, we think about our fire department. However, the fighting of a fire, particularly of this magnitude, is done as, it's a group effort. And with that, I'm going to have Steve Barrett come up, and you're probably saying, why is the Public Works Director talking about a fire? We fight fire with water. And Steve's going to talk a little bit about the water demands.
Hello, I'm Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works, and yes, Mike, you used a lot of water. That was a great description, too, of all the events. It was good. When a fire in Brattleboro goes to a second alarm assignment, the Department of Public Works is notified, and we become a support service for the fire service. So we're under their command. Whatever they need, we're going to supply it. In this particular case, as the alarms went up, we knew the severity of the situation, and the department heads, police, fire, parks, we all participate with the fire department for their needs. We knew that this was going to get to a stage, once you have one or two ladder pipes going, ladder pipes use anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 gallons per minute. Okay, so when you start talking 9, when you start talking, deck guns, that's where we really take this quite seriously if we need to be able to supply that water. We dispatched and called in all our water operators, and what we do is we try to take care of all the hydrants so it frees up firefighters, so that we don't want to see a full-time firefighter being used to operate a hydrant, although it's a very, very important job. Our water personnel are qualified for that. It frees up firefighters. We estimate that on an average we're using between 4,000 and 5,000 gallons per minute. We use approximately 1.8 million gallons for this fire. Town of Brattleboro as a whole uses between 1.3, 1.7 million gallons a day. So we use an awful lot of water. So we did have a good supply, thank God, over the years. The water users have supported increasing the size of the mains, and we have water tanks as backup supply. All the water tanks we had were also dropping, along with putting out 3,000 gallons a minute at the water plant. So a lot of water. The other part of our duties is to assist the police department and the fire department when they say we need to patrol an area or barricade it off for public safety. We called our crews out to put barricades out and to secure different areas. Another one of our tasks at this particular fire that doesn't come up too often is we assisted Burroughs Coal supplied fuel trucks, because we have all these trucks. They're running at peak capacity, use a lot of fuel. So we spend a lot of our time going around and helping fill up all these hungry fire trucks. So, and that's pretty much what we do, is support services, and that's what we did.
Thank you. It was really interesting because I was there and Steve turned around and he said, we're going to need fuel. And he said, well, what do? You don't just move a ladder truck. That's one thing that's really important, is when the ladder trucks are set, if you were at the fire, you saw when a ladder truck is set, they take up a lot of space, they have the hoses connected, you just don't easily move those. And what Steve, he got with dispatch, again, I want to talk about, and we're going to have the chief talk a little bit about our dispatching as well, but Steve got with dispatch, got Burroughs there, and he had his guys bring a 100-gallon truck, because with all the trucks that were in place, they had to drive a smaller truck around to help with the fueling. of that. And so really fascinating. At one point during the fire, the chief turned around and said, Chief Ukasi said, we're going to need fuel. And Steve said, we already got barrels sitting in the municipal center. Where do you want them? That's teamwork. That's pretty impressive. Now, securing of the area, dispatching all those people, that comes under the police department. Chief Wren is here, and we'll be able to talk to us a little bit about that.
Gene Wren, police chief. We just play a support role again to the fire department in a case like this. Police dispatch, central dispatch takes a call, gets everyone on scene. Since the time of the fire, we worked closely with the fire department, DPW, to figure out what roads need to be closed, how traffic needs to be rerouted, and what we can do to keep as much possible people going where they need to go and businesses doing what they need to do. We understand there's a lot of frustration. The other day, every business from High Street to Elliott Street was closed. In the interest of public safety, that had to have been done. We're very appreciative of the shopkeepers and how they aided us in doing that and allowed it to happen. We're constantly monitoring the situation out here with the fire department, Public Works, and the contractors, so we're trying to modify the traffic pattern and what we're doing to let the citizens back in as quickly as possible. The police department's working with Red Cross to provide extra security, trying to find housing and seeing what we can do with that situation, and we're slowly opening up and more. You'll notice today that the east side of Main Street is totally open for pedestrian traffic and part of the west side, and we'll continue to move that and modify that as the situation changes.
Do you want to talk about dispatch then a little bit?
Yep,
What their job is?
dispatch, central dispatches for police, fire, rescue, DPW. They receive the initial 2 911 calls, came in, they start toning things out, dispatching the proper units, as we have 2 dispatchers on duty at all times. As that situation changes and they go to a second alarm, a third alarm, and higher, dispatch gets overwhelmed very quickly, because it's not only the fire department, DPW, and police asking for assistance and changing things, it's now the public is calling in. People are calling in about victims. People are calling in about assistance and aid and what needs to be done. The fire chief sets up quickly an incident command station. From there, from command, they take over most of the call volume from the tactical units in the field, on the scene, and we sort of get away from the central dispatch. Only one point of contact should be contacting dispatch. Incident command should talk to dispatch, and that's it. We shouldn't have all the firefighters in the building talking to dispatch, all the police on the road talking to dispatch. We really minimize the amount of traffic going through dispatch, and it's a much more efficient route to follow, and it's much more effective communication. That worked very, very great yesterday, the other day.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
I think as one of our dispatchers said, I'm not even sure where some of those towns were from, but they had a fire department and they came. And again, it was a great job. We sometimes forget about our dispatchers because they sit in a room all by themselves and you don't see them. But they are vital to any kind of operation like this. I'm going to now ask Brian Johnson, if you want to come up. Brian is the assistant fire marshal with the State Division of Fire Safety. Brian comes the next day after everything's out. And Brian is responsible actually he works collaboratively with the chief, or actually with the chiefs sometimes, with the investigation, assisting with safety. And Brian, if you want to just talk a little bit about what you observed.
Okay. I'm with the Division of Fire Safety. I'm out of the Springfield office, and I actually live in Wilmington. I've been in the fire service for a number of years, but my main thing, what I do is I do code enforcement. I'm a field inspector for code enforcement. I take existing buildings and look at them, make sure they're up to fire code, and if there's any issues, help get those corrected. And any new construction and any modifications of the buildings that are done usually go through us in commercial buildings. The town of Brattleboro does existing buildings in Brattleboro, but I assist with that at any point where they see they might want to have some extra eyes or whatever come in. And afterwards, I also come in after a fire situation, a major fire like this, to help make sure that the building is safe, In that, first of all, for people to go back in it, for the people to be walking around it, and pretty much just go with helping the fire department in any area that they may see that they would like my help in. In this case, coming down and assisting with the fire department, I did come down the day after that morning, but we're not saying that I sat in the Wilmington station until 1:30 in the morning waiting in case they needed extra. We had 2 trucks from Wilmington down here. If they needed anything else, I was next. So, yeah. We did require, and actually it was already taken care of by the time I got down here. We normally would require a structural engineer to come in and look at a building and make sure, get recommendations from them. And from that, and with what the fire department has been doing, we've just sort of helped out and see wherever we can, and we will continue to help out. And we will continue to help out with the modifications and renovations of the building as it goes through. And I'll probably be the person in charge of that as it goes through it. I can't say enough about the Brattleboro Fire Department and what they've done here. I've been in the fire service for 40 years. When you start getting the voids and stuff that are in there, there was a full sprinkler system in the building. It was operational. I have been in the building to do code inspections. It was up to code. Everything that could possibly be done per the code was done for that building. All the emergency things that we had, the sprinkler systems, the fire alarm systems, worked. People were notified. Everybody got out. The building is safe. We've had questions, how come the sprinkler didn't put the fire out? Without the sprinkler system, you wouldn't have a whole block there. I can guarantee you that. The whole block would be gone. So the sprinkler system did work, and sprinkler systems save lives. There's never been a multi-fatal fire in the United States in a building that's been sprinkled. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Brian has been here long hours. I was just teasing about not being here for the fire. Immediately, the concern is with the residents when you have a fire like this. There's an immediate concern with trying to get a head count. There's an immediate concern about where they can go. There's an immediate concern about just safety for the folks. Starting that night, one of the people that also got a call pretty early on in the evening was Carol Alott. One of the first calls that gets made out of the fire department when we have something like that is they call the Red Cross. The Red Cross is excellent. Bruce Pollock, our local go-to guy, is just a phenomenon, but they need a place to go, and they go to the Gibson-Aiken Center. Carol has been working with the Red Cross for many, many years. She's opened the shelter many times for flooding or for fires and such. And I'm going to let her talk just a little bit about how what she did when she gets the call, where she goes, and what that process is and what they're doing right now.
Good afternoon, Carol Alott, Recreation Parks Director. You know, as Barb says, you know, why you call a rec director in on a fire? For the reason she just spoke about is, you know, I'm the key holder of the Gibson-Aiken Center. So at 10:30 Sunday evening, we opened up the Gibson-Aiken Center as a Red Cross shelter. So it's a safe place to go, that you know that there was going to be heat, there was going to be hot water, there was going to be shower, there was going to be food. I'm one of the first people that's called in, and most likely, usually the first person on the scene, because the Red Cross is a volunteer-based organization, so it takes a while to get those volunteers in. And so a lot of the time it's like getting the doors open and starting the process, you know, so that people, you know, Sunday evening, yes, there's a big fire out there, but it's pretty cold in this place, you know. So coming to the rec center is one thing that just, you know, started out at that time, and we have been open around the clock since then. As Barb spoke of, the Red Cross has been great. Not only do we have people from the local level, but there are people down here coming down from the Northeast Kingdom. There's a widespread volunteers. They're coming down to cover around-the-clock services. We spoke about the basics, the food, the hot water, a safe place to be, but it's beyond that. These residents have, further concerns and needs, and the Red Cross has been great about bringing in caseworkers. They met all last evening up until 8:30, meeting with residents, and then they were back in there again this morning, meeting with residents, making sure that their basic needs are being met. As basic as, being able to go out and get clothes for their bodies. Being able to, take it to the next step, because a lot of these people, as you well know, what they walked out of there is what they now own. So they have been great to work with. Bruce, Larry from the executive director has been down here, and they plan on continuing to be here until the services are no longer needed and everybody's needs have been met.
Carol's being somewhat humble in herself because she's been taking the 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift at the shelter the last 3 nights. And so you can ask her anything, she'll tell you the truth because she doesn't know any better right now. She's sleeping. And so with that, then, it has been amazing how local agencies, state representatives, state agencies, and our federal delegation has mobilized with this in response to this tragedy. Yesterday, we had, and in fact we had this, I think, set up, we had this meeting set up on maybe even Sunday morning, or Monday morning, I guess. We had a meeting set up with housing representatives. We had HCRS, Department of Health and Human Services, the drop-in shelter, Red Cross, myself, the police chief and our social worker, and I'm going to be forgetting somebody. Had a meeting set up for 1 o'clock on Monday to all get together to figure out what's our plan, how do we work together, how do we coordinate and collaborate to meet the needs of the people who've been displaced from their homes. They were in the shelter, their immediate needs were taken care of, but we also knew that they were going to have other needs, and we knew that we needed to work together. Oh, United Way was another body that was there. And the Interfaith Coalition. I'll keep remembering as I'm talking of people who showed up for that meeting to assist. This is not the first fire we've had where people have been displaced, so this is not the first time a group of people like this have gotten together after the last couple of big fires that we've had where people have been displaced. These have been people we've met with. We've looked at, okay, who are the residents, how can we help them, what do they need? One of the issues that comes up when you have people who are displaced is some people will go to the shelters, a lot of people will go to a friends or families. And you have the landlord who has the listing of who the people are. Typically their contact information is their home phone, which doesn't really work anymore. And so contacting those people and getting in touch with those people is the biggest challenge. In a way to address that challenge, United Way has taken on the Carmen Derby is using different press releases and trying to get information out. We're posting things at the Gibson Aikens. I think today we've decided we're going to post things here at the River Garden. We've started as we find residents who've been displaced, we've been getting names and contact information so that we can develop a phone list and an email list if they have email access, so that we can contact the residents and let them know things that are going on. Where they can go for help, what help do they need. We don't want to provide something if they don't need it. We need them to tell us what do you need right now. And so we had a meeting at 1 o'clock. By the end of that meeting, we were able to schedule a meeting for tomorrow at 4, in which we are going to have representatives from HCRS, from different housing landlords and other housing, the housing authority, We're going to have representatives from the Department of Motor Vehicles who've already offered, give me a name and their date of birth, and we'll come down with their replacement license if they need a license. We're going to have people from the state IRS, because guess what? When tax day was, Monday was after the fire, in case they need assistance with that. We're going to have people, and so immediate need obviously is going to be housing and some of the, helping, assisting them with other kind of needs. But then there's a lot of other things that are going to go in, because we don't actually know right now what people have. So we have a meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the Gibson Aikens to meet with residents, so residents can meet individually with representatives from these different organizations. I think that's going to be good. And tomorrow we'll probably realize what we've forgotten, and they'll be able to tell us what we've not done. And then we'll be able to do that and address that. I'm going from my notes now. The other tenants that are in there are businesses. Businesses, like I said, we have kind of two sets of people who've been displaced. You've got the business owners and you have the residents. Both of those groups have had their worlds turned upside down. The businesses, we have been in connection with working with BABB, working with BDCC. We're trying to help them with some of their immediate needs as well. Helping them figure out, can I do my business from someplace else? What do I need? Should I be somewhere else? Should I, it's vital that we keep these businesses alive and going over the next several months. These are employers. They employ people. I've had contact with the Department of Unemployment or Employment Securities, so that they can help us with getting the people who've lost their jobs because of the fire. We can get them if you're involved in a disaster such as this, the department can kind of expedite your application for unemployment services so that those people can have their needs addressed. A representative from the unemployment will be here tomorrow at 9 o'clock to help with that, and to get names and numbers of people so that they can help address those needs. The governor was down yesterday, came down. He brought people with him, brought people from from both economic development as well as commerce. And sometimes that seems a little different, but that they also are working with housing projects. So it says commerce. That doesn't mean they're just interested in a business. They're also working with housing issues. We have had our state legislators have reached out to us to see what they can do. The federal government and our federal legislators, Welch, Sanders, Leahy, they've all reached out to say, what can we do? How can we help? At this point, we all have to be cognizant of the fact that everybody's got financial struggles. The federal government, the state government, local government, we have all of our struggles. So what we're looking at is how can we all get together and patch together, using different programs that are out there to find out what are the needs of both the residents and the business owners, and what programs are out there that can help us meet those needs right now. That is a continuing conversation that we'll be having. One of the first things I've been asking is, when I've talked with different agencies, is what are the questions I should be asking these people who've been displaced? What should I be helping them think about? It's not fair when you're a victim of a disaster like this to also say, well, you should have thought of that. We have to be helping people think about that. We have to help people think about, get in your head. You're going to need an inventory of what you've lost. You're going to need to be thinking about that. You're going to need to be writing some of those things down, because insurance companies are going to want to know that. Special grant and loan programs are going to want to know that. And so let's, where's a checklist that we can help get. So that's what we've been doing. Today we met at 2 o'clock with some of the business owners and talked with them about, give them a brief update on things, and mainly was actually to let them get into their businesses to do basically just an assessment, so that they could figure out, what's it look like in there, what's been lost, what's not been. One of the reasons that the businesses were in there today, residents will be going in tomorrow, businesses went in today because they were they were on the first floor. They had less damage. They didn't have some of the, in the upstairs, the hallways, we have a lot of debris in the hallways, and we're going to have to clean some of that out prior to letting people go in there because it's a safety issue. So they got in there, they were able to take out just a few things, and then we're going to be working with them over the next period of time, however long it takes, to help them figure out, do they have inventory that's salvageable? Do they have equipment that they're going to need to get out? How are they going to get it out? How can we assist them? And where are they going to take it to? Those are the issues that we're faced with now, and those are the things that, in conjunction with BAB, BDCC, and other agencies that we're working with, those are the problems we're trying to solve for the businesses. Residents, in addition to the meeting tomorrow at 4, we're going to meet with them at 9 o'clock here, just to have a conversation with them about what's going on. And then beginning at 1 o'clock, they will be able to enter into their apartments. What we're going to do is, because it's so many people, so many different apartments, and everyone goes in, they have to be escorted by a firefighter, okay, for safety issues. Because we still have water dripping, we still have panels falling, we still have all the debris that's on the floor. It's not a clean place to be. And so tomorrow we're going to have, looking at my notes again, you used to type bigger print, I think. I'm not. At 1 o'clock, second floor residents will be able to go in. At 2 o'clock, we're going to take third floor residents, and at 3 o'clock, fourth floor residents. All residents are going to have to come here to the River Garden first, so that then they can be escorted in. We are asking people to bring some form of identification with them if they have something that can show who they are, because we live in a world, unfortunately, in which there are scams, and there are people who are not as trustworthy, and so we want to make sure that the people that we're letting into those apartments are the people whose names are on the lease. And that's for the protection of the people who live there. So we're asking them, again, there'll be a meeting at 9 o'clock. We can talk to the residents about the fire if they have any questions, et cetera. And then beginning at 1 o'clock, we'll be taking people in. There are apartments in which we will not be able to take anyone in. The entire 5th floor, we cannot have anybody go up there. The ceiling fell in, it fell onto the floor is damaged in many places, and it's not safe. In addition, some of the 4th floor apartments, 4-7, 4-8, 4-9, 4-10, have all been are damaged to such a degree that we cannot allow individuals into those apartments. What we are saying, though, if for a resident who is in one of those apartments, for them to contact my office or come here tomorrow during one of those times, and if there are things that you think you can identify for us that you think may have withstood the fire, because these are apartments that were greatly damaged by the fire. This isn't just water damage. This is greatly damaged by the fire. We can send a firefighter up to look and see if they can find those particular items. But if you go to the back of if you go into the Harmony lot and you look at that building, you can see that there are definitely places. You can see that that 5th floor has been damaged beyond anything recognizable. But if there are things that you think would have withstood that, we are obviously interested in sending somebody up there to see if they can find whatever articles those might be. And so and then we will be, once people get in, see what they have, can assess their needs for, packing things up, we will then schedule future days for when those residents can come and pack up their goods. At this point, that's a coordination effort for these folks, because where are they going to take it? And so we need to work with them and coordinate with them on how that can be done and how we can help facilitate that for them. So those are the things that we're doing for that. Now, there's also one business that was greatly impacted by the fire, and that's the Burks House. That is, and Jonathan Chase is the owner of that. Jonathan has had the same devastation. The night of the fire, I still get shivers when I think of looking at your face as you're watching that that destruction. Jonathan has been working diligently with us and on his own to kind of get through the hurdles that are facing him right now. And he's been working with Bob Stevens, who's been a great asset for us as well, looking at the engineering and the structural integrity of the building. At this point, there's a lot of damage to the building. However, so a good part of it is still in good shape. There are rumors I know that have been going around that says, "Oh, it's coming down." No one's ever made that statement. And we have to every day. We see a little bit more of the building every day. We can, as they take that 5th floor off, and as they remove some of the debris, we're going to find out more and more about the structural integrity of that building. And so there is no easy, this is going to happen tomorrow or this is not going to happen, because every hour, every day, we're getting new information that has to go into the analysis. But a lot of people have said, and it's always one of those relative terms, for the fire and for all the fire and for the huge amount of water that was put on that place, it looks pretty good. Now, what does that mean? I'm not sure. But this is a key building for the town. It has great emotional value and for all of us when you look up and you see that Brooks Hotel sign. And so we have had many good conversations with Jonathan on how do we do this? How do we move forward and do so in a way that because the only way this is going to happen is in a collaborative manner, and I look forward to doing that work with you. I was asked a question earlier about if you want to send a check for the assistance of the to assist people who are negatively impacted by the fire. You can write a check either to the United Way or to the American Red Cross, and just put in the notes section that it's for the Brooks House fire. It has not been determined how that money will necessarily get utilized right now or split up. I think at one point in time they talked at the meeting, Andy, I'm looking at you because you were at the meeting with me, they talked about splitting it up by, just by the residents or, something like that. But, so it's not been. So if people ask me what the money is going to be used for, I don't know at this point. It's not been determined.
It certainly would go to benefit the victims of the fire.
Absolutely, yeah.
In what way that would be.
Right. Absolutely. But that's the information on that. This is just another example, I think, of when you, the old, we're not defined by our moments of joy and the things that are easy, that come along easy. We're not defined by what we're given. We're defined by our challenges and by the tragedy and how we handle the tragedies that occur. I've been just amazingly impressed with the people I supervise, with the people I work with, and each day, and also with just the outpouring of support by the people of the town. So very, very happy on that. I'm now Dick DeGray, chair of the board, and probably your challenge, your biggest challenge over 5 years.
Well, I know one of the best things that I've accomplished over the past 5 years is getting Barb Sontag as our town manager. So, there's so many people to thank that I don't have enough time to thank them all, and I'm sure I would forget one. I got a phone call at about 5 minutes of 9 on Sunday evening, and it was from the manager of the works. I kind of have two hats on here at the moment. My wife owns the adjacent building to Jonathan's building, and having a fire in our building in January, the first things out of the gentleman who called us was, there's a fire. And after I picked myself quickly up off the floor, he told me the Brooks house was on fire. At that time, my wife and I immediately drove down to the parking lot. And certainly, as the chairman of the select board, and your wife owns the building next door, my heart's going like this. And I can't thank Chief Bukasi and Assistant Chief Lynch and what they did to not only protect our building, but Greg Warden's building and People's Bank. As much as a catastrophe as the Brooks house was, this had the potential to be absolutely devastating, that would have taken us multiple years to recover from. It's going to take us multiple years to recover from this, but there's always an upside. The best news that I've heard today from Jonathan is that we're going to do this, we're going to rebuild this, and there are opportunities to make it better. And that's very encouraging as not only the chairman of the select board, but as a resident. The chief did an outstanding job. John Wooden won 9 NCAA basketball championships. He didn't do it with one star. He did it with teamwork, and you've heard from a major portion of our team, from the town manager, the fire chief, the assistant chief, the public works director, the recreation director. Rod Francis was at meetings with us yesterday. The hard work of getting the fire out is done. The harder work of how we put together, getting the building back, those businesses operating, and equally as important, getting the residents back into their homes. And that's an emphasis that we want to make, that it's not one or the other. Neither have a priority. They are equal in our task of getting them situated temporarily and back into the building as soon as possible. The governor was here yesterday. I thank him in his commitment to do everything that he possibly can. I had a phone call today from Congressman Welch. He will be here on Thursday, and I'm sure that we're going to try to tip him upside down and get any pennies and nickels that we can from him to assess.
Don't write that.
To assist Jonathan. We have a great, great community. And this community truly comes together when we have devastating things happen. We have had people volunteer their homes. We have had people volunteer food, money. It's those things that make me proud to be a resident of the community. Never mind my leadership role at this time, but when the community comes together to support those in need, wow. And extremely proud of these two gentlemen here. I was at the meeting yesterday when they talked about a fire having a 24-hour head start on you, and you're thinking, when you're looking up at the building going, oh, we could have done a better job, and that person's saying, you can't believe the job that you did given the brevity of the fire before you even got to it. We can't say enough and put enough plaques up for the people who fought that fire, the surrounding communities that came. I was here all evening, and actually it's one of the times where I called Barb after I got a phone call and said we have a fire. She was here immediately. We were here all night. Dora was on the street all evening with us, and if not for anything else but for moral support. We certainly weren't doing anything to say do this. Officer Lynch kept coming up and giving us updates. Is there anything that I can answer for you? They went out of their way. All the things that I've heard on the street today were how helpful our municipality is with everything that's going on, coordinating meetings, trying to set things up for displaced tenants. This is a tremendous, tremendous undertaking. And this is eye-opening to me. Even though I'm the chair, it's eye-opening and almost overwhelming. When you look at what's going on, the geographic location, people have talked to me today about what do you think the economic impact is going to be, the municipality with the fire chief, getting Main Street open today after being closed for business on Monday. Hopefully we're going to have traffic sometime tomorrow, possibly, that Barb may talk about. But getting people back on the street to come down and do business in our community is important. It's important for us to get the message out to people who come to Brattleboro to shop that, we didn't have a funeral yesterday. We have a new beginning, and we're going to take advantage of that. So I can't thank the chief enough, and I can't thank Barb for providing the leadership that once the chief turned it over, Barb has been going nonstop, and it's going to continue to go like that until we get Jonathan's building back operating and getting our tenants back into their homes, and we're going to have a big block party when that happens. So thank you to the team in Brattleboro.
Thank you. We've spent so much time together. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to take questions in just a second. One of the things I did want to point out, and Dick pointed out, Rod Francis here is the planning department, and Rod is going to continue to become more and more important as we move forward and look at kind of funding packages that can be put together, and how do we plan for the future here. So we really have, I think we've gotten all of our departments involved in this. One of the things, just really quickly before we do it, is Assistant Chief Lynch. The fire, if you were there, it was like two different fires. There was the fire that you saw on this side, on Main Street, on High Street, and then there was the fire that you saw at Harmony, from the Harmony lot. They were both pretty scary, but when you're looking from the Harmony lot, when that hit the High Street section of the Brooks house, it was awesome, awesome in a scary way. The Chief Picasso, spent most of his time walking back and forth over here and at the command center, giving direction and giving information. Assistant Chief Picasso spent most of his night on the other side. Assistant Chief Lynch, sorry, whatever. He's asleep. He hasn't slept yet, so he doesn't know. Assistant Chief Lynch was on the other side. He was the operations.
And the way that they were relaying information back and forth, and how they were talking to one another. And he was saying, we see it's flaming over here, because if you were on this side, you did not see it on the other side. And when things are happening over here, they didn't see it on their side. The communication that occurred between the two of them, it was truly amazing, and just amazing. It was just impressive. It may be day-to-day operations for them, but for me, it was quite impressive. So I want to just acknowledge the work that the assistant chief did as well, because it was pretty phenomenal. And with that, I'll take some questions from folks. People have questions.
I'm Kevin O'Connor. I work at
Does anyone else have a
I work at the Raleigh Herald. What is the plan? Obviously, you're still working on it in terms of, or your hopes in terms of Main Street for vehicle traffic.
Mm-hmm. We are hoping, I guess one of the things I should say is, I think I mentioned we're trying to get down the 5th floor penthouse, trying to take down, not take it down, but remove the debris and stabilize it up there first. That's being done with a very huge crane. Renault Brothers is doing that. And so what they had been doing, they did some work from the front today, I believe, and then they were going to the back from the Harmony lot to remove. They kind of knocked it down from the front, and they went to the back to kind of lift it off and put it into the trash. Once they've stabilized that to a point that they feel that they have eliminated any risk for what they would call a collapse area or a fall zone, we'll be opening up the Main Street to vehicular traffic. And it depends on how they're going. We are hoping that we'll be able to do it tomorrow. And that's, I don't think that has changed by any information that we have. So, yeah, okay. Look, everybody's looking. Yeah, we're hoping that we'll have vehicular traffic open everywhere tomorrow. We would also then open up High Street as well. At this point, the reason to have it off today was because they had to get that stabilized, and they were also going to have big equipment on there. We were also, until, as the chief said, I think we just moved the ladder truck away this morning. So we were also concerned about hot spots and flare-ups. Yesterday we had a number of flare-ups in which we still needed the ladder truck to put the out. So as long as once we get the word from the engineer and from the people doing kind of the demolition work right now, we'll open it up, and we're hoping that'll be tomorrow.
Can you just elaborate? Because I've heard different things about, some people have said the idea of actually removing the entire 5th floor penthouse, and then I've heard some people talk about removing debris from it. Do you guys know, or is that a matter of they have to sort of see what's there before they can make a decision?
They're looking to see kind of what's there and how it's stabilized. At this point, I think the final words were that the front facade will be staying, and it's kind of the back is kind of pretty much gone from that 5th floor. So it's removing, kind of demoing some of that. But I believe as long as once they get that debris away, they'll look to make sure that what's standing there is still stable, or if there's any stability that they can add to it, they'll do that, and then they'll go from there.
How many residents were displaced from the apartments?
There were 59 apartments. 48 of them were being leased out, and anywhere between 55 to 65 tenants.
Do you guys have any idea in terms of a timetable, in terms of a hope for a month, a season? Any thoughts in terms of, obviously this is all ongoing, but for people who might think, oh, you'll have this all figured out by whenever it is, are there some some timetables that might be helpful to lower people's expectations or maybe make them more realistic in terms of what to expect when?
At this point, and Jonathan, I'm looking at you if you can correct me if I misspeak. At this point, it's still an hour-to-hour, day-to-day. I think we're off the hour-to-hour now. I think we're more on a day-to-day way of going. It's really hard. It's really hard to say because they are continuing. I think once we get this stabilization of the building done, and that will then allow other people to go in and start doing some of the work that needs to be done, they'll have a better answer on that. But, you know, so it's just kind of hard to say at this time. And the other thing is, as Dick said, this is somewhat, you have an opportunity here that Jonathan's looking at this and saying, how do I take the lemon and make lemonade? And some of that's gonna, it probably would take a shorter time to put back kind of the same type of building with the same type of heating and that kind of thing. If you want to do something alternative and, and kind of environmentally friendly, it may take a little bit longer because then you're redesigning. So I think those are things that'll impact that.
Hi. Have you picked, who's going to be leading the engineering inspection, stabilization of the building? Who will make the final decision?
Stevenson Associates at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, this is one of the Jonathan and I were having a conversation in that, this is a private business, a private, privately held business that has a lot of importance to the public. and so, we're kind of feeling our way with this relationship. Luckily, the town and Jonathan, we've had a relationship, for the past several years, so we've worked with one another on things, but we're trying to respect each other's roles in this. I think we're realistic enough to know that we need each other and we need to work together to get this done. But we do have different roles.
Casey Farrar from the Keene Sentinel. I was wondering about getting the residents into housing. Do you have any sort of an idea of how long it's going to be before they're all? I know you said the shelter will be open as long as it needs to. Mm-hmm. Any idea of how long that'll be?
It depends on that. We are working with the Red Cross and working with people. We'll have a better idea tomorrow because when you say housing, we're looking first at temporary housing and then at permanent housing. It would be great if we could move immediately to permanent housing, and we are working with that. That's why we're having landlords there tomorrow. We're having people who can maybe assist with some of that. But at the same time, it's probably not going to be realistic, and so we also know we need some temporary housing to occur. And I think we'll have a better idea tomorrow on that, depending on, at this point, there is no general register of what apartments are available. I don't know. I don't know how, what's available. Are there 48 apartments available in town right now? I hope so. I think so. I assume so. But we don't know. So it's going to be, we're going to be working with, and that's why we're working collaboratively. That's why we have to have all the different, we were to contact the landlord association. We're talking with a variety of different types of landlords that may be able to help us. And, we're also working with state agencies to help us. We've not done that at this point. I've been trying to do a press conference or a press release. I did, I think, 2 yesterday, a couple today, 1 yesterday, 2 today. I'm not sure. Part of the problem with that is, and I think we will be able to get to a more routine way. but it's, information has been coming kind of quickly and also been changing. And that's one of the things we really found out yesterday is, oh, this is the case, that's going to need to come down, it's going to have to, we're going to have to take that 5th floor down, and then, because look at it, and then you've got people actually up there, and they realize, hey, this is still pretty solid. And so knowing when to give the information out so that it's good information at this point has been kind of tricky because it has been changing. One of and it's also who we're trying to get the information to is, it's easier when you've got 7 to 10 business owners to contact them as it is, you got the 48 residents who've been displaced. And so we've been working, I think I said earlier, working with United Way on getting distributions to Gibson-Aikens, getting distributions information to here, getting it out to the press so that they know when things are happening. So, that's been, we're trying to get contact information with people as it goes. And on that kind of thing. And then I am, just to be right out there, this isn't just a public building. This is a private business, a privately held building that is important to us all. But that individual deserves the respect and privacy that they should have. And so not everything is going to be a press release. And if there's nothing else, I want to just thank you again for coming and helping us get the word out